A lot of times, people get confused and think that Thales CipherTrust Cloud Key Manager is competing with the different native cloud key management services out there, when it is not. Instead, it is enabling the business. And to show how it is enabling the business, we're going to take a look and see how we can make AWS KMS a business enabler using Thales CipherTrust Cloud Key Manager. To show how cryptography as a technology can be used to enable the business, we need to be able to measure our security. And to measure our security, we need two things. The first is that we need the mindset of knowing exactly what metric to look for. And because the technology we're using to control the security and access to our data is all focused on prevention, being able to protect, control, and limit access, the metric we want to look for is not so much a long-term metric, but instead a visibility metric, which is the number of attempted attacks. Why? Because it is a positive metric in that it shows exactly what encryption was meant to stop, and because it raises awareness in how cryptography as a technology is being used to enable the business. Now, this only works if we limit access to those that only need it by following least privilege. And the way we do this in AWS is by both managing and controlling the key policy. But instead of just thinking about it as a key policy, I want you to think about it more as a zero trust policy. And here's why. When we look at our security controls on-prem, most of us have this defense in depth mindset approach that layers different security solutions to protect our most critical assets. However, when we try to apply the same mindset or blueprint to the cloud, it doesn't really work because the data we were trying to protect is no longer inside the control of our perimeter, which introduces new risks and exposures to our data as we start to think about migrating and building new applications using native cloud services. The other reason to think of it as a zero trust policy is because while we like to think that identity is a new perimeter, it is actually cryptography itself. Encryption is no longer the last line of defense, but instead the first line of defense. Here is an AWS policy flowchart decision tree. By default, all requests are implicit denied except for the AWS root account user, which has full access. If there's no explicit denied, AWS then looks at your organization service control policies to understand what are the maximum permissions for an organization or you. After the service control policies are evaluated, the next step is to evaluate your resource-based policies. And guess what? The key policy is a resource-based policy. What makes this key policy so special is that not only is it focused on managing the keys, but also controlling access to the data. To better understand what I mean by this, let's jump into a demo. Here we are in my desktop, and as we can see in the center of the taskbar, I have three different Chrome windows open. The first is a window where I'm logged in to my AWS Thales Crypto Labs account as a root user. The second window is my CipherTrust Cloud Key Manager, which is part of the Thales CipherTrust Data Security platform. And the third window is an AWS user called CryptoAlice that is logged in to the same AWS Thales Crypto Labs account that the root user is logged in as. She's my cloud developer, and we'll see in a little bit how she's going to help us with this demo. Starting with the first window, where I'm logged in as root. Under the S3 product page, I'm going to select buckets, and under the buckets page, we can see that I have a single cloud bucket called Thales Crypto Labs. And inside this cloud bucket is a single .jpeg file called Thales_CCKM. If we select the object, we can see some of the property information about the object. And if we scroll down a bit, we can also see that the security and access to this object is being protected by this key. If we select the key, AWS will redirect us and send us directly to that key in a new tab. And as root, I can see all the property and metadata information about the key policy, the tags, if key rotation is enabled, the alias names, and so much more. Now let's switch back to my CipherTrust Manager window. While the platform offers multiple ways to protect the security and even the privacy of your data, today's focus is going to be on how we can manage our keys and control access to our data, all from an independent, centralized location using Thales CipherTrust Cloud Key Manager. Inside the Cloud Key Manager tile, we can get a bird's eye view of all of our cryptographic keys and how they're being used across multiple accounts, across different regions, and even multiple cloud or SaaS providers. Now, the key we're looking for is in AWS, and more specifically, it is in my AWS Thales Crypto Labs account, which if I filter down to, I can see there are actually 6 keys in this account, all in the US East 1 region. The first key is an AWS managed key for S3. And based on the alias names, we can see this next key is being used for secrets. This one is being used for Lambda functions. This other one's for RDS. This is for EBS. And this last one is for S3, which is the key we're looking for. If we select the key, we can see the same property and metadata information that root was able to see from the AWS console. But now watch this. Instead of using the default key policy, what I'm going to do is apply my own key policy, click apply, and then click update. And as soon as the key policy is updated and I switch back, I can see that root has lost all access to the key. And root has God-like privileges to the AWS console. If we go and look at all the customer managed keys in this account, we can see that for the S3 key, we are no longer authorized to view or manage the key. As root, I can only see the alias in the key ID. What I've just done is taken control over the key policy, so now the only way you can view and manage the key is from Thales CipherTrust Cloud Key Manager. But there's more, because the key policy is not only used to manage the key, but also control access to the data. So now, if we switch over to the third window, and then under the S3 product page, we select buckets, we can see the same Thales Crypto Labs buckets, and if we select the bucket, we can also see the same object. And if we select the objects, and then try to open it, we get an error message. And the error message is a little vague. It reads, the ciphertext refers to a customer master key that does not exist in this region, or you're not allowed to access. It probably has something to do with the key since we know the object is encrypted. So now, if cryptocurrency tries to go over to AWS Key Management Service, she's going to be denied access not only to the S3 key, but to all keys. But if we go back to our bucket, select the file, and then scroll down a bit, she can see the ARN address of the key. So now, if she copies the ARN address, goes back to our CipherTrust Cloud Key Manager console, and do a search for this ARN address, we can see this is the key that is protecting that object. And if we scroll down inside the key policy, I can see that I have an encrypt and decrypt statement with conditions that require two principal tags to be present before granting access. The first is a KMS privilege tag, which must equal RW for read and writes, and the second is an application ID tag that must equal demo. Because the principal tags are normally associated with the user and role, let's maybe take a look at the tags that CryptoAtlas has by going over to IAM, select users, select CryptoAtlas from the user list, and then select tags. From this tab, we can see that CryptoAtlas has a few tags. For KMS privilege, she has RW, which matches. However, if we look at the application ID value, the tag is incorrect. Instead of Thales, it should be demo. So now, if we update our tag to match demo, save the changes, go back to S3, back inside the buckets, select the object, and now try to open it again, we are no longer denied access because CryptoAtlas has now met the conditions defined by the key policy. While we only looked at AWS KMS today, Thales CipherTrust Cloud Key Manager supports multiple cloud providers including Azure, GCP, Oracle Cloud, Salesforce, and SAP Data Custodian, allowing you to discover, manage, control, and measure your security. I want to thank you for watching and see you until next time.